I'm down. All right. So I'm connecting the stream up. Let's see what happens. All right. Connection is excellent. We are live.
We're live. YouTube.
What up, yo? All right. So I think this is a conversation that me and you have had a couple of times, but basically it comes down to what? I want to continue to try and change the world and you just don't care to, or like, that's just the way I see it. Like, I feel like I want to try and change the world as much as I can by affecting other things. And you think that it would be more effective to focus on cleaning up what's around me and making that thing better, and in turn, affecting legitimate things I can actually, interact with.
Well, sort of. I think the main thing is this. I try to look at things in the perspective of the most real way possible. Meaning, like, there are people who change the world and they're just one individual, but generally there's a lot that they did leading up into their lives, and it wasn't in their young life when they influenced a ton of stuff. Now, there were young people who influenced things, but I personally know you, and I personally know people around me, and I know people who've tried to change the world and really just came across as either wasting their time when they probably should have been spending their time, energy, and things like that on other things affecting their lives and whatnot. Also, the premise, when we talked this morning about kind of all the crazy junk that's happening in the world and how we probably should care and we should probably be prepared for it. And that was kind of your premise when we talked. At least that's how I perceived it.
Yeah.
And I straight up just said, like, I don't care about this stuff, because this stuff, yes, in the slight chance that it might affect my life at some point, there's still so much, there's a much higher chance that I won't be able to do anything about it if that slight chance comes around. And so why worry about it? Why stress about it? Why not put that intention and the stress that it puts on you and reverse that and use it for something that you can tangibly deal with in your life? And so I brought up the kind of clean the room thing that Peterson says. So let me throw this back on you. So why don't you tell me, because you had some interesting points when we talked today, why don't you tell me what you see this philosophy, how you perceive Jordan Peterson kind of saying, clean your room. And for people who don't know, it's basically, he says, before you go out and change the world, clean your room, meaning fix the things in your life you can fix. But even without that premise, how do you kind of perceive that, and where do you find problems with it, I guess?
So I mean, I usually perceive it that way, as that I do need to focus on the things that are around me, that obviously I have, control over. One, literally cleaning up my room and making sure that the spaces around me are kept tidy and kept clean. I just think my only point is that at some point I feel like you need to do more than just clean up your room. Because, like, I feel like I'm always cleaning. I'm always continuing to do these things to continue to advance myself. It's just a constant thing that I'm doing. And I'm talking about, like, physically cleaning. I'm also talking about controlling my finances, trying to, do the best I can at work, I've been trying to work on my health and go to the gym a lot too. So those are the types of things that I'm doing to clean up my room, and it doesn't feel like enough. It feels like I want to do more because I'm getting to a point to where I'm capable of doing a little bit more. I have my room in order, and I want to now branch out a little bit and maybe help some other people clean up their room, or, maybe help someone clean up the room in the sense that I don't want to assert that I'm correct, but I do want to look for truth. And if we can establish, truth, then I want to share truth with people. And I think that that's hard because sometimes people don't want to hear the truth or scared of it, all these other things. And that's what I'm usually meaning when I'm saying that we need to not just clean up our room anymore. We need to just go out and push back on these ideas that we don't agree with, because especially if they're, contradicting truth and those types of things. I liked the barbarians at the gate analogy that I was trying to say, because it doesn't make sense to focus on something very individual when there is a greater threat that is coming. And at some point you need to then give up cleaning and working on yourself individually to then go out and help your community and be part of the fighting force that's going to defend, not just your house and your individual territory, but the town or city or country that you're actually in. And that's kind of where I'm at.
So I think in terms of the clean your room thing, I think that is not a state that you are supposed to be in forever, obviously. Otherwise, you would just do nothing but constantly work on yourself, and you wouldn't interact with other people, or you wouldn't interact.
Yep.
You wouldn't go beyond that. You wouldn't go to the community level. You wouldn't go to the state level. You wouldn't go to the national level. You wouldn't go to the world stage. Now, people have obviously done this. But, I mean, obviously, I've known you your whole life. I know myself, and I know kind of our small interactions. And I've seen other people, so many other people recently and nowadays, who try their damnedest to be these kind of crusaders for certain causes. And in my perspective, it's like so hard for me to be stressed out living in this country, especially being like a white male living in this country. It's like we have it so damned easy, and we probably, statistically always will. No matter what threats loom out there, things like that, most likely we're going to be fine. And so that's the premise I live my life on. It's like the statistical chances that you're going to walk into a grocery store and get shot by a mass shooter, even though it happens and it's in the news and it's terrifying and scary and things like that, statistically, it's just a drop in the bucket. And so trying to be worried about that kind of stuff, for me, just seems like it's a waste of energy. And if you go even further into the world stage, what's happening in China, what's happening in Russia, foreign policy and things like this, it's just not something you can affect unless you basically play this game where you get into politics and you try, and that's all you ever do is you be a career politician. And I just don't think anybody should want to do that.
So I have a pretty good example as a rebuttal to that statement, because I agree. I don't think that anything that we can directly do on this small scale is really going to affect anything major on the world scale, potentially. But you made the example that the statistical chances of a active shooter situation in a grocery store is very rare. I still always carry a gun into a grocery store. Okay, I am legally allowed to do that, and I have all of the right to do that as well, because I do know that those types of situations happen. And if those things happen, I'm going to be prepared for them. So, that's kind of the thing that I'm looking at, is maybe we should look at some of the things that are happening around the world, like in Russia, like in China, and start, working on our concealed carry skills. So when those things do end up happening, which potentially won't and probably won't affect us very much. But again, this is kind of the example I gave to you. Dude, the East Coast could get wiped out, man. What do we do then? What's the next move? Like, I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying anyone's even targeted. I'm just saying, what if something like that happened?
If the East Coast gets wiped out, continuing on with our daily lives will just not happen.
But that's my point, though. Yeah, that's my point.
Every single thing in all of our culture will change, and there's nothing we can do about it to prepare for something like that.
But that's not true. We can't
other than be like a prepper or in somewhere. Like, there's just no way we can prep for our economy to crash in one day for millions of people.
I don't know, dude. There are ways you can prepare for that. You buy a bunch of bullets.
Yes, you can, but
you buy the things that you need.
In terms of changing,
that's true,
the way people are going to act during that time, changing how your fellow citizens will back to that, there's probably nothing you can do that won't make that event be
Not
just the
happen.
most catastrophic thing that's happened ever.
So
So like, and at that point, it's like, why would I spend time trying to worry about that happening when the the likelihood of it happening are so nil, and even if it does, there's nothing I can do about it. That's where I generally come from things. This is an apathetic approach, I know, but I don't think it's a nihilist approach. I think it's just a kind of a realistic approach moving into seeing where I want to put my time, seeing where I want to put my stress level and that.
for
So
me, it's like you're right. I probably do put too much stress into thinking about things that I have no control over. But I think that it is important to plan for these things and not to count them out from happening altogether. And that's what I was kind of getting at this morning, is it felt like you're just like, this thing's never going to happen. It's impossible. It's not going to stay the same. I agree. I just think no, and you didn't. I was inferring that about our conversation as how I was understanding it. And I'm just like, the way that I'm thinking about it is I'm looking at all of these things happening in succession. It could just be something that I've noticed that has always been happening. But if not, these things are suspiciously close together that I'm, concerned enough to be like, we should probably pay attention to those types of things.
Yeah. I mean, and so for obviously no one else is in our conversation, so I'll bring up another part of it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other points I made was like, and I'm not like a historian really, but there are major pieces of history that everyone just knows about, whether it's from movies, whether it's from, history class, or whether it's from just kind of documentaries on Netflix, that type of stuff. But like people in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, like they all saw scary stuff happen too. And they didn't even see it nearly in the amount of information being like bombarded to us via social media, via news sources online, even news sources on TV, which no one watches anymore. It's like constant. I mean, man, we are looking at this thing every single day, all the time, and so it's like we're constantly being bombarded with the same types of things over again. Immediately after something happens, we know about it. All of the things that are happening at once, somebody is trying to tell us about it so that they can get clicks. And that is what, to me, is like, man, if you can't just filter that stuff out, you go crazy. Mm-hmm. And I don't want it to be something that weighs me down a lot. Now, I actually gain a lot of entertainment value from looking at people like Tim Pool, Ben Shapiro's stuff, Sam Harris's stuff, Jordan Peterson, obviously. Like all of these people are entertaining to me because they're all speaking about something. But when you get to the real pundits, like Shapiro and even Tim, it's nonstop bitching about something, whether that be bitching about leftists or liberals or what happened here or this, that, and the other, giving their opinions. It just seems to me that it's always negative. It's the same thing. I used to listen a lot to Rush Limbaugh. I would listen to Mark Levin, all of these pundits who they're speaking truth most of the time. And I really agree with what they're saying a lot of the times. But the fact is they are not really adding any positive benefit to my life because they're just bitching about terrible stuff that's happening, the stuff that they hate, the stuff that is on the other side of the aisle that's wrong and terrible and ruining our country and everything. And so that's just, when you get too much of that, I feel like it starts to weigh on you so much that I just don't want you to fall into that trap where it's like, well, I got to do something about this. I'm pissed off. I'm angry. I'm this, that, and the other. And that's what happens when activists go out and they do crazy stuff. I'm not saying that you would. I'm just saying that there's a correlation there.
Oh, and
where it's like, you're pissed because of this thing they think is terrible. Maybe it really just isn't, or maybe it's not as big of a deal as you think.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. Like, I understand that type of content is what people want to watch because it's emotional. It gets you riled up. It's the things that you're not interested in. And trust me, like that's why, again, I'm glad that Tim Pool's cut back on a lot of his material because I don't watch as much anymore, which is great. And like I've been actively finding more just general conversations with people rather than finding someone, ranting at their camera. Now, that being said, I think that there is something important about people ranting at their camera, and it is defining out people's opinions that then you can then look at and say, I agree or don't agree with that. And even, I don't think you should completely agree with anybody. I think you should always be listening to the ideas and be working with them and trying to do it. And that's the benefit of watching those types of things. But I very, very much agree. Too much of that gets you into again, I think I tweeted this out today. I feel like Chicken Little because I feel like I'm yelling, the sky is falling, and the sky is falling all the time because that's all that I'm watching. And I agree. I think that's why, again, doing a podcast like this, I want to focus more on positive things and new technology. I want to do more of the creating culture, like, doing creating some of the Numenera stuff. Like, dude, I really want to do that because that's along the lines where we get to create our own world that we live in and we can make our own rules. And that sounds way more interesting to me.
Well, yeah.
Continuing to look at
that kind of stuff. I've found that stuff to be very, very interesting, liberating, and able to use your creativity. I'll tell you this though, the main thing that I think would be interesting in doing a podcast, the biggest reason that I really want to pursue it, and I'm glad that you're pursuing it, is I think the most interesting thing to watch sometimes with podcasters is just to see things that are interesting to that individual in kind of an amalgam. So I'll try to explain. I like all kinds of different stuff that, and this amalgam of stuff that I like and that interests me, I don't think anyone has that exact same amalgam of stuff.
Yeah,
right?
It's called being an individual.
Not everybody likes Marvel and likes, sci-fi books. Maybe they like DC and they like sci-fi books, and they're different, So for me, it's more like if we can add in different segments that will be each of these things that we like, and by the way, probably aren't experts in any of it, especially politics. But if we can at least give our perspective on the world, share that out, and try to stay relatively positive while we do, I think it gives us a niche over people like Tim and Ben Shapiro. And like Ben Shapiro is a fast talker who constantly talks about negative politics.
I just think that's going to be
a conservative angle that's constantly bitching about what the liberals and leftists do. And it's like, it gets so old after a while. It's like, oh, the leftists did this today. Joe Biden did this terrible thing. This is why he's ruining our country. And it's like, okay, we get it. Like, all you're doing is the same thing that the liberal media was doing to Trump. It's like, well, Trump tweeted this today and he did this, that, and the other today. And it's like, it just flips because now the conservatives are doing the same stuff.
I just think that we as consumers of this media must know that these things are happening. I think about that all the time. I'm like, I see the hypocrisy, and it's like everyone's a hypocrite. I don't think just one person is. I think everyone is, because you're right. It flipped. Now they're bitching about all the stuff that Biden is doing. I'm catching myself in that too. Like, man, why is Biden looking at, changing the Supreme Court? That sounds kind of weird. But like, again, though, that was the same mentality that people had about Trump. And I can understand that, right?
It is, because it just happens to, frankly, like, there are
something
things
that I disagree with, and they disagreed with Trump.
Yeah,
so why am I? Yeah.
But it is politics. There's this kind of fine line that gets crossed constantly crossed back and forth all the time. The fine line between, you can just smell it, how something is BS,
speak for yourself, because majority of people cannot smell BS and spout it all the time. That's like my other
point. A lot of times, if you're paying attention, you can smell BS on a politician. But there are also times when it's not BS, but they still get called out for it. And then you can smell the people calling out for them's BS. And this happened with Trump all the time. And it's already happened with Biden, and he's only been in office for less than 100 days.
So you said a phrase that I want to kind of focus on a little bit. You said paying attention. What do you mean when you say paying attention? Because that's a big thing that I have with getting off Twitter, is that I feel like I will then lose attention to what's actually happening. What do you think when you say that?
Frankly, I think paying attention, there is a way to pay too much attention, and there's absolutely just enough attention. And I think the just enough attention is to have a time of the day when you're going to absorb. It's kind of like, I'll go back to like when our parents did it. Back in the day, when did everybody get their news? 5 or 6 o'clock p.m. on 3 different major news stations, and they sat in front of it and they watched Walter Cronkite. Now, that was them paying attention, quote unquote. Now, were they really? Probably not. Like, they probably weren't getting the whole story and they weren't getting much. But for me, I think you pay too much attention when you constantly scroll Twitter, when you put Twitter when you're trying to go to sleep in your bed and that type of stuff. I think paying attention is you pick people who you trust most of the time, and you believe that they're trying their best to speak truth. I think you need to do it on one side of the aisle, you need to do it on the other side of the aisle, and then you need to something as neutral as you possibly can get. And you need to see the same stories from different angles and really absorb them from different angles. And then you're going to have your 1 hour, 2 hours of the day when you're listening to a podcast that maybe is super conservative. Like, for instance, I listen to Ben Shapiro most days to try to get his take. But that's not where I want to get all my news. And so then you have some kind of feed that you've tailored that it is not constant bombardment of negativity. And then you try to stay informed that way. But I do believe that being too informed, like, man, I'm sorry, but I don't want to know every
I'm way too informed.
minute detail of every shooting that's happened. Like, that's no way to live, man. That's just awful.
No,
I don't want to know.
That's a specific one for me because all of that stuff is really pertinent to my job, and I know
you. That definitely for you, it's a bigger deal, I think. And again, that harkens back to your lived experience being different than mine. You certainly need to know this type of stuff.
Yeah, because so that's a good point too. So I agree that I spend way too much attention on this stuff, but when like specifically talking about a lot of these police shootings, that's the stuff that's so weird to me because I get swept up in all of that stuff too, right? I get swept up in was that white guy with with a gun in authority telling people what to do. Those are not a good combinations of things to be doing these days. So like I need to be able to pay attention because it's a learning thing for me. Like so I'll go kind of just into the the taser thing. Have you ever held a taser?
No, I've never. I don't even hold guns all that up.
So the first thing they teach you in the taser course is to make sure that you're pulling your taser, not your gun. It's a very common thing that's talked about. I don't hear anybody talking about that because that's my personal experience with my personal trainer who taught my class the taser stuff. So like I again have a unique perspective, but like whenever I talk about getting like triggered, because I do, at stuff on Facebook, it's usually pertaining to that type of stuff because I just either think that they're really wrong or I actually know that they're wrong. But what I've learned, like what you're saying, is it doesn't matter, and trying to convince people only makes it worse. Did I lose you, Danny? Did you go? Well, everybody, I think that we lost Danny, but I think this has been a pretty good test. Oh, is he back in?
He's back.
Oh, he's back. This is
still on
playing mode, and this is about 10 seconds behind it. I lost you for a bit.
Yeah, my connection timed out or something. Did something weird.
But it.
We're back. The last thing you said was
something about tasers?
when you were in your class. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll just go ahead and repeat that real quick. Like, again, I got trained. One of the first things they said is to make sure that you know where your taser is on your belt, and they specifically told me, at least, to cross draw for taser, so that way you're never the muscle memory for this and this are two different things. So your brain engages it differently. Now, I agree with your point that you said earlier when we were kind of speaking that 26-year veteran making that mistake. Ooh, there's not.
I'm not. Yeah, my point wasn't
room.
that they couldn't make the mistake. My point is that that's like egregious.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like that is
that's seriously like. How? I mean, it's not.
At the
It's not
same
that it's
time,
easy to make the mistake or not easy to make the mistake, but like, I'm sorry, but like a rookie making that mistake, okay, 25 years, especially I've heard that cross draw thing, like, and apparently that was what they had them do
it's
in that
the
police department.
majority of the so if that's the case, which I didn't know, and I'm curious if that, to see more on that. But the thing I was like saying to Taylor is, okay, think about it this way: budgets are getting cut. Okay, you need to save money. You have to pick between training on a firearm or training on a taser. Okay, taser cartridges are $25 a pop. Okay, bullets are about 60 cents a pop. Which ones needs to be trained on more? Probably the firearm. So there's a lot of factors that lead to more firearm training, which trains your muscle memory to do that specific thing. So I think it's an accumulation of a bunch of different problems. A lot of it being training. How many times has she shot that taser? Practiced with it, not just actually shot it in the past, 5 years, compared to how often is she going to the range and shooting? Your muscle memory.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, your muscle memory is going to be to the thing you do the most. Now, again, you still shouldn't make that mistake. And I don't think that, to not even get into that situation anymore, but like, it's just like, that's a situation where I see people talking about it without any other knowledge or understanding of the type of training, the type of, mindset, the type of, interaction that does. And, when you're dodging or you're doing something quickly, you don't have those types of experiences to go off. They're just like, how could you misjudge a taser and a gun? Well, I'll tell you how, but you're not going to believe me because you don't have those experiences, and
Or they just don't care. I mean,
that's another thing. Well, they don't care. They just want to vilify the cops.
We
Which
talked
they
about
probably should in that case.
We talked about kind of like what you absorb and like how, that kind of like dopamine rush you get for certain things, and people
bashing cops gives a lot
honestly,
of people.
It's like
lot of 90%
of the people who comment on stuff on Twitter have no idea what they're talking about.
Me included. That's why I don't
But I don't even
stuff.
mean they have no idea and then they still talk. It's like they actually don't have an idea that the stuff they're saying is just, one, pointless, or two, just completely emotion driven, or just self-serving, or just trying to push a narrative.
And there's no other sides to it either, man. And like, again, not trying to get super political, but the big one that I saw with this last case was people were getting fired for calling for due process. Like, what? Like,
well,
we need to be able to at least investigate these things to better understand.
I can tell you exactly why that happened. And it's the same reason that all of the city leaders and things like that were taking a step back while they burned their cities down last summer. It's that they feel like if they give like a couple inches to these people, they'll back off, or they'll feel like they satiated this beast in these mobs. Basically, they say, well, we fired this guy for just saying this. Isn't that good? Maybe you shouldn't burn the city down. Oh, they're still burning the city down. Damn.
That's political leadership mistakes that they have. They're like, that's
poor
leadership.
It's just sacrificial. It's that city manager guy you're talking about. He was just a sacrificial lamb. I was like, well, we're gonna fire this guy because he said some things we didn't like, or he said some things that we don't think the mob would like, and so, well, see, look, we fired that guy, so maybe you don't have to. Maybe we are on your side, and it's just like, it's so easy to throw that dude under a bus for pretty much nothing. That happens all the time. That happened all last summer. It was like, we're gonna throw our police under the bus to try to satiate this crowd. We're going to throw, all of the National Guardsmen under the bus. We're gonna throw these communities under the bus because somebody's got to pay, and the mob's going to be out there, and we just have to show that we're not on their side so that they don't come to our actual houses and burn them down, which happened to a lot of those.
Which is
city
poor
mayors
leadership,
like
and that is the reason why
it
we're in the
absolutely
situation that we're
is.
in now.
Objectively poor leadership. But to them, they're just spineless, and they caved to these mobs.
Do you
And
mean
frankly,
to us that they're spineless? Because they're spineless.
yeah, a lot of the people in the riots last year, they were just like, you know what? Our city's burning down is what it's going to take to get Trump out. And when he does, things will get better. And it's just not going to happen. Now people are going to realize that. But again, so that right there, constantly being informed and watching this type of stuff happen over and over and over again is, we think, man, this is happening so much more often now.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We're seeing this all the time now. This is a thing that is like, now it's the new normal. It's part of our lives. And it's like, not really. It's just constantly shoved down our throats.
So that's
are just getting more and more pissed off. It's a snowballing effect happening because of Twitter.
Yeah. So let me wrap that up, because I think that I'm kind of getting the whole wrap up of it. So basically, people are over analyzing or under analyzing things. So then I feel like I need to then continue to over intake on all this media. So that way, when I see someone taking I don't even say the wrong view, I want to say just the non-factual, the one-sided, I don't know. It's hard because we want people to be informed and to search for the truth, but they just are actively not searching for the truth. So I feel like I need to stay informed to push back on these type of ideas. And I don't want to say that they're wrong. I just want to say that like when someone posts something that is incorrect, I can usually figure it out and be like, I don't think that that's right, and I can go find the source for that. And that's, what I think of is as paying attention. But again, I also agree with you too that I personally take in so much of this stuff, and it's because I see all these, like I said, my Facebook or my whatever media that I'm looking at, I always see these just this one view, and that's just not a good representation of how everyone is thinking. But I get stuck in the way that people are all thinking that way, and it's just ugh.
Well, again, I mean, it is a phenomenon that we're seeing in our young lives that we didn't see in our youngest life. You know what I mean? So like we are, you're about to be in your 30s. I'm in my early 30s. And like when we were kids, this type of stuff wasn't in everyone's faces all the time. The Rodney King thing that happened, people saw the video, but they didn't see it till months and months later. They didn't see, it wasn't in real time on a cell phone. Like this type of stuff.
Again,
we are watching this type of stuff happen literally as it happens. And we are able to go back and verify it. We're able to retweet it, repost it.
But people aren't. There we go. So that was the point I was making. But people aren't doing that. People are taking what they see and making claims about it that either they don't know or nobody knows, or they just actually aren't true.
Though. That's my point. My point is that they can take the actual like bits of it, as opposed to just being told by Walter Cronkite what happened, or being told by the 5 o'clock local news talking head. They get to see it and form their own opinion immediately. Or they get to form an opinion based on someone who they hear of their opinion all the time, who's either taken that video and changed it, or they've taken that video out of context, or they've immediately applied their take on it, and that's now what you believe because you listen to their take. This happens on both sides of the aisle constantly. Constantly. There's so many conservative Twitter people who are like, they'll meme about something right away, and it's like, oh yeah, that's bullshit. And then you go back and you look at it, and it's like, okay, now I'm looking at the whole picture, and I'm like, I can see where this was self-serving on that end. I can see where it's self-serving on the other aisle of the spectrum. And frankly, what it just comes down to is it's just sad. The thing that's happened is sad.
And like, there's nothing good about it. Yeah, exactly.
There's a million reasons that it can't be fixed or should be fixed or whatever. But it's like, man, and that goes back to what we started talking about, is like, if I try to figure out a way to fix all of these problems, that's all I'll do all day. That's
Sure.
all I'll do with my life.
And be
And for
unsuccessful mostly at it too.
it's almost 99% of the time going to be either unsuccessful or useless. And it's not a way to use your life unless it is. You know what I mean? Unless that 1% of the time you're really making a breakthrough and doing a thing. But, in order to do that, it's like there's a lot that leads up to it. I.e., you have to essentially have the type of platform that you need to change the world. And frankly, that's not really just sitting in front of a camera. You actually got to go out and do it.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I want to go do that. I want to go do that in Denver.
I have a relative amount of respect for the gumption that activists have. It is impressive to see someone so fired up about something. But most of the time when activists go out and they do things, especially in mobs, it ends up being the most primal, terrible, violent thing humans can do, because that is how people have been changing the world for the entirety of human history. And they have changed the world doing it that way. They have changed the world
by... still think it works. I mean, violence technically works, but it should never be used.
Well, if your goal is to get attention about something, violence always works.
Well, if your intentions are to scare someone into not doing something, then yeah, violence usually works, and we call that terrorism.
It'll work. Dude, violence works for lots of stuff. If you want to take people's stuff, violence works great. If you want to hurt somebody who you don't like, violence works perfectly. If you want to make a point that is burned and ingrained into people's brains, violence is a great way to do it. The only thing is, it generally doesn't solve anything except for all of those self-serving things I just said. Mm-hmm. People don't get that, Oh, we're going to end police racism by burning down a city. No, you're not. You're just going to burn down a city and steal some shoes.
But they do think that. However, no. That's the problem, Danny, is that they do think that will bring change. And what we're seeing now is that the politicians are giving them the yes answer that you need to do.
They're like little children. The politicians are like their parents, and they're like little children who are having tantrums, and they're just allowing them to have these tantrums and then giving them their cookie afterwards. And it changes nothing and it helps nothing, because it's because the politicians are spineless, and they know if we do this, we'll be fine in our gated homes, and we will be fine with our actual guards that guard our stuff. But, let them have what they have, and that's that, they'll go away. It's been happening forever. And it's always the people with power, like, how can we just feed the cookie to the wild mobs enough that they'll leave us alone? And that's what's happening with the media and corporations right now, and the most of the politicians. It's just like, yeah, this terrible stuff's happening. I'll go on Twitter and say a thing, or I'll make a quick statement about how this is terrible, racism, structural, blah, 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 and then I'm going to do whatever I want. It's hilarious to watch.
Which again is the reason why you say that we just shouldn't care, and I tend to end up agreeing with that original assumption with it. So let's not even about
caring. If it's fine, I'll just say this to wrap it up. It's not about not caring. It's about choosing what I care about. It's not that I don't care about things happening. It's about choosing specifically what you want to put your attention on, what you care about, because there's only so much of that can go around. That's my main point.
Yeah, which I usually mostly agree with. I just want to argue against sometimes, because I feel like at some point we do need to do something, and whether that something is talking to people or organizing, appropriately. At some point that's, things that need to be done.
That makes a lot of sense. I'll also say I'm lazy sometimes, and I don't want
very lazy too.
I just want to do my own thing most of the time. You can ask my friends about that. A lot of them got up in arms about everything over last summer, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm just going to do my own thing and just live my own life and try to just get day to day. I'm not going to go out there and be an activist. And other people thought that I got the 5th degree from my friends about it too sometimes. So it is what it is. it's a mentality. I think you got to kind of change or stay the same. But
Yep.
it's crazy.
All right, so we just did. That was almost 40 minutes of that. The stream looks good. My computer went to sleep, so it should still be streaming. I'm not really sure how.
Computer went to sleep.
Well, yeah, because this computer right here that I'm have the browser open that I'm viewing the live monitor from.
What is your What is your YouTube thing?
It should be actually you should be able to pull it up live too. It should just be Western Hype Entertainment. And actually, if I have you pulled up, I don't think I do. Because I can pull
and I had to type all the way down Western Hype Entertain to get to it.
Does that surprise you?
No, but here we are.
Yep. So, okay, cool. So one last test I want to do before we sign off.
Oh, we're still live.
I know. One more test I want to do live before we sign off of the live is I'm going to switch to my Twitter page again, and I want to see how that works. So I want to go to this screen, present now.
You said it's about a 10-second delay. That makes sense.
Yeah, and it gets worse too the longer it goes.
So it still wouldn't work if we wanted to pull up like stuff in the middle or your Twitter or whatever.
It should. We're about to do that right now. Check this out.
I need to get one of those cameras you have.
Do we have the same camera?
No, like the light.
Oh yeah, dude, $16 from Walmart. It was a really good buy. This doesn't look too bad. Oh, I got kitties. We got some Charlie Kirk talking about capitalism. Got movie stuff.
Yeah, speaking of self-serving, that fucker.
I mean, he's been one of the worst. I told you I met that dude, right? Yeah, it's still a little choppy. I'm curious. It hasn't switched over yet. Let's see. This will work for like articles and stuff. It doesn't look as choppy.
I mean, dude, you're right about just streaming live. It's the best way to do it.
And again, my computer's
edit it.
Yeah,
It
and like
looks good. It's fast. The audio quality's good.
Look at what it says on there. It says Biden really lied about literally everything. Oh, Biden voters posting their L's.
Also, you can just turn comments and shit off, right?
What are you talking? I could probably turn the chat off. Are you talking about of the video?
Not the chat necessarily, but the comments of the video. You just turn that off, right?
Probably. The comments are good feedback though to start. They're putting 2 layers of fencing in front of the courthouse. I think it was this one's talking about there might be a oh yeah, this is the tweet that's saying I'm hearing there might be razor wire moat in between fences. That's wild.
For where is this? Oh, this is
Minnesota,
Brooklyn
and whatever, yeah. Which is really close, really close to the other the George Floyd case. So, to be honest,
dude, that's about to get spicy.
Dude, he's about to get acquitted. It's not going to be good.
That's about to get so spicy. Oh, it's awful.
Have you been watching it at all? Besides the Timcast
the
stuff?
actual trial itself?
No, just the stuff that...
Yeah, I've paid attention to it, but I could... I honestly, if he doesn't get like first degree murder and be executed, would have to be to not have rights.
Yeah, which is it's absolutely
There is
that's just out of the question. None of that's
precisely
gonna happen.
0% chance that that's going to happen.
Oh, people mess around, and I just don't get how you think that that's a good look to walk around in a black ski mask. What are you doing, bro?
They don't care about the look. They want to be. They want to be anonymous.
Yeah, but it looks like you're just trying to intimidate somebody. Oh, Doge game.
What is happening right now?
Which part? Are you still watching the stream? Doge is
Your
shaking.
fucking Twitter.
I know. I have a bunch of weird Doge stuff. All right, so we're gonna leave it up on Doge. We did 45 minutes. I think that it will be a pretty good test. I'll probably rewatch it tomorrow. See what's up. But other than that,
well, it works the
Dude.
fastest, and it's already uploaded. And hold on, you don't have to store it on your computer, right?
no, technically this is probably stored on the YouTube server, so I probably can download it if I wanted to like keep it, which I don't really care about this file, but I would download it and then put it onto a hard drive. So, honestly, what I would want to do is I'd want to have a stronger rig and then stream it and record it as well at the same time, so I have a localized file myself. But
Right.
that's down the line. But all right, I'm going to go ahead and press stop streaming.
Sweet.
Peace out, y'all. I guarantee no one's probably going to watch this point of it, but if so.
That's fine. No one
Deuces.
needs to watch this one, but hey, we actually got some stuff down. This
Well,
one is.
hey, that's what I was saying. That's what I was
40
saying
minutes.
is that we did 40 minutes. It's actually live. It's actually posted. It's not super choppy. So, like you said, every single week we've made progress.
It's really not choppy at all. It actually looks pretty damn good.
I'm curious to see what it will look like when I rewatch some of the stuff of me scrolling through the Twitter, because it looks like it's a little choppy. But
Well, maybe when you're scrolling.
But
And then,
no,
of course, if I get kicked off or whatever, I wonder when I got kicked off.
No,
what that looked like.
yeah, it was probably your. That one didn't look.
It
too
was my
bad.
connection.
Yeah. So I can see on my monitor that I'm choppy. So I'm assuming that the live stream is going to be a little choppy as well. But all right, either way, all right, I'm stopping.